We've got Chris Sununu, the governor of the beautiful state of New Hampshire. I don't think he intended this to hit him broadside on the same day he's talking about the race.
I'm a governor. I can handle anything.
I know you can, Governor.
Bring it on.
Your thoughts on this? A lot of this is old news. Some of the revelations and details are a little new. The timing is interesting. The former president's people are saying right after this, they claim disastrous performance by the Democratic vice presidential candidate. That's in the eye of the beholder as well, but what do you think?
Well, look, I mean, just go back to last night. There weren't any questions about the trials and all that sort of thing. There wasn't any discussion of it because I don't want to say folks have moved on, but there's so many questions around it. It wasn't handled very well. So the various cases were not handled very well by the different prosecutions. And so, again, this is adding more color to it. And there is a lot of skepticism and speculation that there's a political motive with Jack Smith and the Department of Justice. So, yes, a month before the election, 24 hours after the debate.
It did come up a little bit last night. I mean, J.D. Vance they were trying to corner him whether he agreed with Donald Trump
on January 6th in particular.
Right, and whether the election was stolen and all of that. But this is old news to a lot of people. Maybe we get new color on it. Maybe it does, change people's thoughts. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think it does.
4 years later, right?
I'd say this. For some people, January 6th is a huge priority. It's a disqualifier or whatever it might be. Those folks are committed voters. They're in the polls, so to say, right? They're in one camp or the other. Of the 10% of swing voters that are out there, this is not a priority issue, and therefore, adding more color to an older issue, I don't want to minimize it. We'll find out, the validity of it in the courts as all this goes on down the road. But in terms of the voter aspect of it, I think it has a very minuscule moving of the numbers. Right now, again, look at their top issues. It's about the border. It's about the cost of living. It's about, the international crises that are happening, our place in world stability, the drug crisis. These are the top issues that people are very, very worried about, and rightly so. And where those points are, and I think that's the value of what happened last night. We really got to hear policy decisions and policy philosophy from both of these camps, really for the first time, in a very coherent way, in a cordial way, as it went back and forth.
That's what
Huge
struck
value.
me. I mean, a lot of people who watch this, Governor said, well, if only the presidential candidates could have been as cordial to one another. It's neither here nor there.
I think pretty much everybody said that.
So where does this go? I mean, debates, and you've reminded me in the past, don't necessarily move the needle, but they can sense a direction or continue a direction. What is that direction?
So two things. The direction is definitely favoring Trump right now, right? There's been 3 debates. The second debate was not very good for the former president. This debate was very good for his team. There's no question about that. The question is, do they have the discipline to take the win and move forward? And again, there's going to be some very significant issues that the Biden-Harris administration is going to have to deal with. It's nice to see the vice president out there in Georgia. She's getting out there. I think there's a lot of questions about the president himself delaying, going down and visiting for the first couple days there. But whether it's Helene, whether it's this port crisis, which I think is only going to get worse over the next couple weeks, that's a big one. It's going to get to be a big issue. And then, of course, what we saw with
President Biden has not intervened the way he could. He could call for an 80-day cooling off period, but he's not. And I'm wondering,
terrible move. No executive leadership.
So what does that mean? He knows by taking that position. He puts his vice president in a bit of a box.
Look, leadership solves problems in terms of he's not there to provide the answer, but you can force everyone to the table. There are leverage points that the president of the United States carries to make sure that there's some sort of positive resolution. If this goes on just fettering on and on, it's going to be a real problem for the average American in terms of fuel prices, more temporary inflationary costs as it goes into the election. That's going to be a real problem for them. And then, of course, we had 200 ballistic missiles shot out of the air by our ally, thank goodness. But that Iranian crisis is just getting worse. And
we're waiting to see, right, Governor, to your point, Israel's response. This administration is saying, and we had proof yesterday, they helped knock down a lot of these missiles that came into Israel. But it only goes so far, and the relationship, we're told, is still tense, that notwithstanding. We've got another few thousand troops in that neck of the woods, I believe over 40,000 now. Where do you think this is going?
It's not getting resolved anytime soon. Biden hasn't shown any will of leadership there in terms of actually bringing real resolution. They talk a good game. We saw Kamala Harris out in front of this months ago saying, we're working on a peace agreement and ceasefire deal. Obviously, that wasn't the case. So they're really floundering. And so back to your original question, which is the right question, does Trump have the discipline to take some of these wins, not step on his own toes, and not step into issues that right now Biden has a hard time managing? And Biden and Harris are going to have to come up with some sort of solutions on this stuff, but they don't seem to be to be doing that. Right there, you saw the vice president still unwilling to take questions. What an amazing, from a political standpoint, I don't know what her team was thinking. She just missed an amazing opportunity to take some questions, show leadership during a national disaster and crisis. She took one question.
You know, I thought about what you're saying there. One of the things you can talk, and whatever your views of J.D. Vance, you know, he's talked to anyone and everyone, friendly and unfriendly, mostly unfriendly journalists, and taken on each and all. And I'm sure that prepared him for last night. And you always said it's the rigor of the challenge and being in the game. I'm just wondering where you see this going. And in your state of New Hampshire, for example, it's pretty tight, right?
It is pretty tight. I think Harris is putting more resources on the ground. I think just much like 16, it'll be within 1 or 2 points either way. But there's no doubt these campaigns are focusing on Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Dakota, Georgia, and maybe a little bit of Wisconsin and Arizona. So that's where the race is. And yes, vice presidential debates are very inconsequential, but just moving the needle a little bit could make all the difference.
It can do it. Great seeing you. I mean, I threw a lot at you. I apologize for that, but you handled it very well.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.